What if the place Cain fled to wasn't just a location, but a realm of divine exile hidden from human history? The land of Nod wasn't merely a geographical territory. It was a spiritual dimension, one never intended for mankind. From ancient Mesopotamian texts to modern myths of a lost city, the land of Nod has left whispers across time, echoes that still haunt today's most secretive religious sites. The banishment, Cain's unforgivable mark. In the earliest chapters of Genesis, we are confronted with one of the Bible's most chilling moments, the murder of Abel by his own brother Cain. But this story isn't merely about jealousy or punishment. It is a gateway into one of the Bible's most haunting enigmas, the land of Nod. Cain, marked by God himself, is cast out. But where does he go? The Bible states simply, "Then Cain went away from the presence of the Lord and settled in the land of Nod, east of Eden." Genesis 4 verse 16. Yet the text offers no explanation of what Nod is, where it lies, or who resides there. This vagueness has fueled millennia of speculation. Was Nod a real place, a symbolic one, or worse? Was it a prison for other fallen beings? East of Eden, what does it mean? The phrase east of Eden is more than geographical direction. In ancient Hebrew literature, moving eastward often symbolized departure from divine order. When Adam and Eve were expelled from Eden, they were sent east. When humanity built Babel, they moved east. Each eastward journey represents separation from God's original plan. Cain's banishment, then, isn't simply exile, it's descent. A spiritual fall into a place where God's presence is distant, perhaps even absent. And so Nod becomes not just a land, but a condition of existence, a state of divine abandonment. The origin of Nod, not named by man. Unlike most biblical cities, Nod wasn't founded by a man and named after him. The text doesn't tell us it was built by Cain or even discovered. It simply was a place that already existed, waiting. This suggests something ancient, older even than humanity's recorded history. Could Nod be one of the primordial realms? Perhaps like Sheol or the waters of the deep? Some apocryphal writings and early rabbinic commentaries hint that Nod may have been a realm prepared for spiritual exiles. Those like Cain, who broke the cosmic law. Who else was there? The mystery of population. One of the greatest puzzles arises from a simple question. Whom did Cain marry in Nod? If Adam and Eve were the first humans, and Cain had just murdered his only known sibling, how could he build a city and have a family? Lost lineages. That Adam and Eve had many unnamed children, and Cain married a sister or niece. Pre-Adamic beings. A more controversial idea suggests that other beings, perhaps not entirely human, already inhabited the earth, divine or fallen entities. Some ancient texts like the Book of Jubilees and the writings of early Christian mystics propose that beings cast out from heaven may have roamed the earth, and Cain may have found them in Nod. Genesis 4 verse 17 tells us, Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bore Enoch. When he built a city, he named it Enoch after his son. This is no small detail. A man cursed to wander becomes a builder. This irony is striking. His punishment is restlessness. Yet he builds a city, the ultimate symbol of stability. Did Cain build this city with human hands? Or was he given knowledge from another source? Ancient Jewish mystical traditions speak of watchers, celestial beings who imparted forbidden knowledge to mankind. Could Nod have been their dwelling, and Cain their first human initiate? The idea of a cursed land east of paradise isn't unique to the Bible. In Sumerian and Akkadian mythology, lands beyond the divine garden were often associated with demons, exiles, or gods in punishment. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, a land far to the east houses immortal beings and secrets of the divine flood. In Zoroastrian texts, Ngramenu, a destructive spirit, is exiled to a distant land after defying order. These echoes suggest a shared memory, a universal theme of divine separation. The mark of Cain, a signal or seal. The Bible says God marked Cain to protect him. Yet the nature of this mark remains unknown. Some early theologians believed it was a glowing symbol. Others saw it as a distortion of his body or mind. But what if it was a key, a mark that allowed Cain to access a forbidden place? In Gnostic tradition, seals and symbols could unlock spiritual realms. Could Cain's mark have served as a kind of passport, an otherworldly signature granting him entry into Nod? Modern parallels. Are we still in Nod? Modern thinkers have drawn eerie comparisons between Cain's journey and our own societal trajectory. The rise of massive cities, technological knowledge divorced from ethics, and the seeming absence of divine presence. Are these symptoms of a global Nod? Is the modern world, in its alienation and spiritual hunger, echoing Cain's restless wandering? No credible archaeological site has ever been linked to Nod, and yet, throughout history, many have searched for it. Some point to lands east of Mesopotamia, ancient Iran, Afghanistan, or even part of India as potential sites. Others claim Nod never left the spiritual realm. It is a dimension overlapping our own, hidden in plain sight. Some esoteric Christian groups believe certain ancient ruins may contain clues, structures whose builders vanished without trace. Could these be the remnants of Cain's lost city? Conclusion: a curse that built civilization? Cain's exile was punishment, but it also marks the beginning of human civilization. The first city, the first family outside Eden, the first hint of independent destiny. But this independence came with a price. Disconnected from Eden, from divine intimacy, Cain's legacy is one of wandering souls and restless cities. The land of Nod may not be found on a map, but its shadow looms large. In every act of violence, every towering city built in defiance of spiritual truth, in every attempt to create meaning without God, Nod lives on. And perhaps that is its greatest warning. Could Cain's punishment have been a hidden blessing? What if his exile to Nod was not a curse, but a gateway to something ancient and forbidden? The land of Nod may have been more than a geographical exile. It might have been a spiritual realm, a dimension between man and the divine. From ancient Mesopotamian legends to the Watchers of the Book of Enoch, echoes of Cain's fate resonate across cultures. What exactly was a land of wandering? And who or what was already there after Cain was cursed for murdering his brother Abel? Genesis tells us that he was marked by God and cast east of Eden into the land of Nod. While many assume Nod was a literal place, a desolate wilderness, deeper layers of biblical and extra-biblical texts suggest something more enigmatic. The word Nod itself means wandering in Hebrew, hinting that this land was not just a place, but a state of being. But was Cain truly alone? The text states in Genesis 4 verse 16, "So Cain went out from the Lord's presence and lived in the land of Nod, east of Eden." There is no clear geographical reference for Nod, no map that plots its coordinates. This has led many scholars to speculate. Could the land of Nod symbolize spiritual exile rather than just physical displacement? Was Cain cut off from the divine, doomed to wander not just across land, but across history and myth? Cain's punishment included a mark, a mysterious sign placed on him by God to prevent others from killing him. But this raises a question. Who were these others? At this early stage of human history, only Adam, Eve, and their children existed according to the Bible. So, who exactly was Cain afraid of? Some propose that the world was already populated by other beings, creations not mentioned in Genesis but hinted at in other traditions. The Book of Enoch speaks of fallen angels, the Watchers, who descended and mingled with human women, creating hybrids known as the Nephilim. Could these beings have occupied Nod? Could Cain have found refuge or alliance among creatures neither fully human nor fully divine? Cain is said to have built a city in Nod and named it after his son, Enoch. The act of building a city suggests resources, manpower, and organization, implying Cain was not alone. Who helped him build the city? Who were its inhabitants? Again, we find ourselves confronting the mystery. Were there pre-Adamic beings, or did the descendants of Adam rapidly multiply beyond what Genesis narrates? Mesopotamian myth offers a parallel. The story of Enkidu, a wild man created by the gods who lived among the beasts until he was civilized by human contact. The Epic of Gilgamesh describes lands filled with divine beings, monsters, and forgotten gods. Cain's journey to Nod mirrors this descent into the unknown. Rabbinic literature adds more depth. Some Jewish traditions say that Cain became the prototype of the restless wanderer, cursed to forever roam the earth. Others believe that he founded a lineage that would culminate in figures like Lamech, warriors, inventors, and builders of early civilization. Some even associate Cain's line with the rise of violence and rebellion against God. The mark placed on Cain is another enduring enigma. Was it a physical brand, a visible tattoo-like symbol, or was it something metaphysical, an aura, a curse that made others fear him instinctively? The Septuagint, the ancient Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible, renders it as a sign, while the Targum adds the idea of divine protection. Christian interpretations sometimes see Cain as a symbol of the fallen man, exiled, marked, but still under divine surveillance. He becomes a shadowy mirror of humanity, flawed but not abandoned. Legends in other cultures speak of cursed wanderers, marked outcasts who carry divine wrath or knowledge. In some European folklore, the figure of the wandering Jew parallels Cain, doomed to walk the earth until the end of days. This resonance cannot be ignored. The land of Nod then becomes a mythic landscape, a liminal space beyond Eden, where divine justice and human guilt intertwine. Some scholars suggest Nod is the anti-Eden, a spiritual wilderness where man faces himself stripped of paradise. But Cain did not disappear into obscurity. He built, he begot, and his legacy continued. In Genesis 4 verse 17 we read, Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bore Enoch. This small verse has spawned massive debate. Where did Cain's wife come from? Was she a sister, as some traditions claim, or was she from among those other beings? Perhaps the descendants of a pre-Adamic race? And then comes the city. And he built a city and called the name of the city after the name of his son, Enoch. This city becomes the first of its kind in Scripture, a symbol of urban life, of human innovation, but also of human rebellion. Could this city be the prototype of later rebellious civilizations, Babel, Sodom, Babylon? Some theologians draw a straight line from Cain to the founding of civilizations that stood in opposition to God. In this view, Cain is a father not just of agriculture or murder, but of culture itself, marked by ambition and estrangement. But another interpretation emerges. Perhaps Cain's story is not one of simple condemnation. Perhaps his exile was part of a larger divine plan, a scattering that planted seeds of complexity and diversity. Perhaps the mark was not only punishment, but also protection, divine acknowledgement of his continued purpose. In the land of Nod, Cain may have encountered mysteries lost to us now, beings ancient and strange, knowledge forbidden, and a role in history deeper than we imagine. Did he find redemption? Did he fade into myth? Or did he build something enduring, something that changed the world? What if Cain never truly disappeared, but instead left behind a hidden legacy that still influences humanity today? Cain's punishment was not mere exile. It was transformation. The man who once tilled the soil became a mythic archetype of cursed power, forever walking the thin line between man and monster, a mysterious link between past and present. In many cultures, there are legends of ancient restless beings, marked by shame, burdened with knowledge, and cast the edges of civilization. From the wandering smiths of European folklore to ancient desert spirits in Semitic tales, the echoes of Cain resonate far beyond the pages of Genesis. After Cain murdered his brother Abel, the consequence was not death. Instead, God sentenced him to become a fugitive and a vagabond upon the earth. But this punishment came with a peculiar promise, a mark placed upon Cain to protect him from being killed by others. This strange paradox, a murder protected by God, sets the tone for the eerie narrative that unfolds. What was this mark? Was it a visible sign, a supernatural aura, or perhaps a genetic transformation? Rabbinical and theological scholars have long debated this. Some early Jewish interpretations described it as a horn growing from Cain's forehead. Other rabbinic sources hinted at a shifting face or a glowing countenance. Christian thinkers like St. Augustine took a more metaphorical route, seeing the mark as divine permission for Cain's extended life to act as punishment in itself. But here lies a deeper question. Why would God choose to preserve Cain, especially if his crime was so egregious? Perhaps, rather than punishment, this was a dark form of preservation, a way to ensure that Cain's tale would endure as a warning and more ominously as a foundational myth. Cain fled to the land of Nod. This location, east of Eden, is never clearly described in Genesis. Was Nod a real geographical location, or was it symbolic of Cain's psychological exile? The name Nod in Hebrew is connected to the root word, nud, meaning to wander or to flee. This suggests Nod wasn't just a place, but a state of being, a condition of eternal unrest. This perspective aligns with ancient Mesopotamian and Canaanite beliefs about the cursed wanderer. In those cultures, to be landless was to be powerless. Yet Cain somehow defied this. In the very land where he was supposed to roam aimlessly, he built a city. This act is a paradox. How does a wanderer construct a permanent settlement? Some scholars interpret this as evidence that the story of Cain's exile was not meant to be taken entirely literally. The founding of a city could symbolize the birth of human civilization, one tainted by violence and guilt from its very foundation. It could also imply that Cain's descendants, and by extension humanity, were born into a cursed legacy. Let us consider the city Cain built. He named it Enoch after his son. This is the first city mentioned in the Bible. Urban development, then, has its roots in fratricide and exile. This suggests an uncomfortable truth. Progress is often born from pain, and civilization may be founded on blood. There is a chilling symmetry in the genealogy that follows Cain. His descendants are associated with key developments in early civilization: tent-making, music, and metallurgy. Jabal, the father of those who dwell in tents. Jubal, the father of all who play the harp and flute. And Tubal-Cain, the forger of all instruments of bronze and iron. These are not just people. They are archetypes, representing humanity's earliest technological and artistic advancements. Yet this advancement carries a dark undertone. The man who began it all was cursed. His progeny, while talented, also inherited the violence. Lamech, Cain's descendant, boasts of killing a man for wounding him, declaring that if Cain was avenged sevenfold, then Lamech will be avenged 77-fold. This spiral of violence mirrors the generational curses often depicted in ancient narratives. Here is where myth and anthropology intersect. Many ancient myths begin with a sin or act of violence that leads to divine punishment, transformation, and then civilizational progress. Cain's story fits this mold perfectly. He is not just the first murderer. He is the first city builder, the father of those who advance culture and technology, but also a progenitor of unchecked vengeance. Some Gnostic texts even elevate Cain's status. In these heterodox beliefs, Cain becomes a symbol of rebellion against the demiurge, the flawed creator god. To them, Cain's act was not evil but liberating, a necessary disruption in a corrupt world order. This reinterpretation was condemned by Orthodox Christian theologians, but it shows how Cain's role has always been deeply contested. In Islamic tradition, while the Quran does not name Cain and Abel directly, the story of the two sons of Adam is told with a similar moral. The consequence of unjust murder is spiritual exile. Yet even here, Cain, or Cabal, is portrayed as one who regrets his actions too late. He buries his brother after seeing a raven do the same, a powerful image of learning morality not from God or angels, but from the instinctive behavior of animals. But what if the land of Nod is more than metaphor? Some speculative historians and fringe theorists have attempted to identify real-world locations that might correspond to it. Eastern Mesopotamia,